Hey everyone, and welcome. The show we're going to be talking about today is Invincible. Fun fact, this show is based off of a comic book that came out in 2003 and ran up until 2018. This show came out in 2021 and stars Stephen Yeun, J.K. Simmons, and Sandra Oh, and was created by Robert Kirkman. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Invincible tells the story of Mark, who is half human and half Viltrumite, and he discovers his powers. And throughout the show, we see him learning how to use his powers with the help of his superpowered dad, Omni Man. We come to find out that Mark's dad, Omni Man, is actually not the hero that we thought he was, and he's actually coming to try to conquer Earth. Mark must now learn how to use his powers, but also decide if he is going to help save the human race or if he's going to join his dad in trying to completely destroy it. This cast has so many notable faces. I'm not going to name them all, but I'm going to name a few that you may be familiar with. Stephen Yeun was in Minari. Sandra Oh was in Grey's Anatomy. J.K. Simmons was in Spider Man. Zazie Beetz was in Deadpool 2. Mark Hamill was, of course, in Star Wars. Jillian Jacobs was in Community. Walton Goggins was in Ant-Man and the Wasp. This show is kind of like The Boys, Hellboy, and Superman all kind of wrapped up in one. It has lots of action and blood, and of course, superheroes. When I watched this show, I noticed that there was a lot of comparisons to other like comic book stories as well. The most obvious in this show is Omni Man. He kind of resembles like a Superman like character. He's from an alien world and he comes to be like Earth's savior. Then we also have like Damien Darkblood, who comes from Hell. And when you look at the character Damien Darkblood in the show, you're like, kind of looks like Hellboy. We also, come to find out Mark, his last name is Grayson. And Grayson is also the last name of another popular superhero, Dick Grayson, who takes up the mantle Robin or Nightwing with the Batman storyline. The Guardians of the Globe kind of resemble like a Justice League type situation as well. And then the organization that Cecil works for, I saw people calling it like a shield type entity, but it reminded me more of like if you've seen the Hellboy movies, the organization that Hellboy works with, because it's a lot more secretive than Shield, and they do everything under the radar. And so that's what the organization that Cecil worked for reminded me of. After I finished the first episode, I was kind of like, what did I just watch? Like going into it, I didn't really know much about what the show was going to be about. I had heard, from word of mouth, like good things about it. So like, I'm going to try it out. And so, like, after the first episode, you're going to just be like, what? But it also is like very intriguing because now you're like, now I want to see what's going to happen from here. Like, how is this all going to play out? And so it was just super interesting to see like that first episode really like pull you in at the end and then seeing how they were laying out the season and kind of like what was going to be going on. I thought it was great how they started off the show with Mark not having powers and showing how he was learning how to use his powers throughout the series. I thought that this really highlighted the fact that he wasn't full of Viltrumite like his dad, and that he was half human. And so it really showed how his journey was going to be completely different from his father's. I love that Mark is not only learning how to be a superhero, but he's also learning how to manage his own powers. I liked how this show showed how when you're a superhero, even though you're trying your best to save people, there might be some collateral damage and it may not be on purpose and it's definitely still going to affect you. I love the story of this indestructible superhero who turns out to be a super villain. I thought that it was interesting in the show how, Omni Man is shown as like this hero for many, And in the show, we know as a viewer that he killed the Guardians of the Globe, but then we're trying to figure out kind of like what his actual goal is. And we come to figure out on the show what his actual goal is and what he hopes to do with Mark. I thought it was really interesting, but also kind of scary because it's kind of like, what do you do in that situation when you have someone that's so overpowered? How do you handle that? I thought that Adam Eve and Mark would date on the show, but I'm kind of glad that they didn't and he dated Amber instead. I thought this invited this conversation about how life would be like as a superhero dating someone who is normal. It was interesting to see him struggle with whether or not he should tell her he's a superhero, but also juggling spending time with her versus spending time as a superhero. And we slowly watched their relationship fall apart. And I thought it was just really interesting to see, some of the struggles that he faced as a up and coming superhero, considering he didn't know how to juggle his life. It's funny because in the show, even after all of this, Amber still finds out that Mark is invincible. It's just funny because I think that a lot of times in superhero movies, they put on like a mask or, they change their hair and then all of a sudden nobody realizes that they're a superhero. And this show kind of played with that and was like, it's really not that hard if you connect the dots. And that's pretty much what Amber did. And then she figured it out. I love how Eve figured out her own place in the world. She had a really rough life at home, and she was always clashing with her dad. And then in the show, we see her going off and kind of doing more humanitarian work. And it was really cool to see how she, identified that living at home wasn't good for her, and then figured out what would work for her. And then she just did it. And I thought that was cool to see with her character. I felt bad for Deborah on the show. She was put in a really tough place, dealing with the fact that her husband is not the man who she thought she knew, and finding out that he is a killer and he has come to invade Earth was a big shock for her. Also, trying to figure out the best way to protect her son. So it was just really like a sad spot that she was in, and probably extremely stressful as well. I understand that Cecil's job or his goal was to keep everyone safe, but that like stealth technology that they came up with was extremely creepy. There were multiple times in the season where like there will be someone in a room and then Cecil will just pop up or like his army men will just like pop up and it was so creepy because it was just like how long have you been there and like is this like a normal thing for you? And so I was just like that whole situation was creepy. I mean I guess it's good in an instance like this when you're trying to sneak past Omni Man, but it is still very creepy. One of my favorite characters that was introduced in this show was William. I thought it was great that Mark had this friend that he can always count on, and I felt that he supported Mark, even though it may not have been like the best in Mark's eyes. I feel like William was always there for him, and he was kind of funny. It was sad in the episode though where they go to visit William's friend in college, and it was just like a one time we see William like actually being really happy and really excited and in love with this college guy, and then his I don't know if it was man friend, boyfriend, I don't know. Anyway, he gets turned into like some little weird creature. So it was like sad that like William finally found some happiness and then his happiness gets ruined by some little mad scientist wannabe who turned his man friend into some weird creature. I thought it was interesting to see the new Guardians of the Globe after the old team was killed. We see how the team is really bad at working together, and it was really cool to see how the team had to like grow and learn how to work together, and by the end of the season they finally got there. But it was interesting to see how unorganized they were, and how inefficient they were in the beginning. And it was, interesting to see how that was something that they had to work on. Just because they became a team doesn't mean that they were all going to go in there and everything was going to go smoothly. Like things were messing up. People almost got killed. And so it was just interesting to see that, dynamic with the new Guardians of the Globe. I love when shows add little small details that some may miss, but then some may catch. For people watching this show, you may notice every time they show the title card, with each episode, there's more and more blood on the title card. I thought that was interesting because it just showed like how the show was like progressing. It was getting more violent as it was going on, and so I just thought it was interesting to show that. And it was definitely letting the viewer know like there is going to be blood in this show as well, and it's going to be violent. And yeah, as the episodes kept going on, more blood was just piling on. I thought it was also interesting how when they would show the title card in the show, it always happened to be like when someone was talking. And so they would be in like a scene and it would be in the middle of a sentence where someone was going to say, and instead of them actually saying invincible, that's when they would show the title card. I thought it was a really cool way to like incorporate the title card in there because I know like some shows they have like a theme song or they have like some like beginning credits, but this show it was like let's incorporate it into like what we're already telling. So when someone was getting ready to say invincible, instead of saying the word, we got the title card instead. There was one scene that really stood out to me in this show, and I thought it was hilarious. There's a scene in which they are fighting a villain. It's Mark and Eve. And the villain is at Mount Rushmore. And he says that he's going to blow up Mount Rushmore because everyone on that mountain is racist. And I was looking and I was like, he's right. He is very right. And I was like, okay. But then he decided he was like, and then I'm going to put my face on there. And I was like, well, see, that's where the villain comes in. I was like, because you are right. Everyone on that mountain is racist and they shouldn't be there because that's stolen land. But when he was like, then I'm going to put my face on there, and then I was like, see, now you're stepping into villain territory because you think you should be on there. But I thought that that scene was just funny because it was like, a scene in which it's supposed to be kind of like a joke as like this is like the villain plan, but it was like a truth to what he was saying. I thought it was cool how in the final two episodes, when Cecil is trying to stop Omni Man, we see the return of some other creatures and people from other storylines throughout the season come into play in those like last two episodes. I thought it was interesting to see how some of these episodes may have seemed like standalones, but then they ended up coming back in the end. We get the mutated people that we saw in episode 6 when they went to college. We see like the big monster, but it's just jacked up on like drugs now. We see the one of the superheroes that Omni Man killed come back to life, and so it was just really interesting to see how like there were like different pieces from the first couple of episodes that came back in the last two episodes. My favorite episode was episode 6 in this show. It's an episode in when we see Mark, Amber, and William go visit one of William's friends in college. And in this episode, we see this is the first time that someone close to Mark, who is not his parents, finds out about his secret ability. We see how Mark learns that a relationship as a superhero is really hard, and we see how his relationship with Amber completely falls apart. We see how Deborah, his mom, finds out that Nolan, aka Omni Man, is actually the person who murdered the Guardians of the Globe. This was also kind of one of the first times where we see someone who was close to Mark actually get hurt. It was an interesting episode where there was a lot of things happening and a lot of things coming together. And so I just thought it was really interesting to see all of these things coming together, but then also realizing that, even though Mark is a superhero, there's always still that chance that someone close to him is going to get hurt. Invincible is a great show in which we see the story really building up throughout the season. It has an amazing voice cast and lots of action scenes and just a lot of crazy things going on. If you have not seen Invincible, I suggest you watch it on Amazon Prime. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you have not subscribed, please do so to keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun. Goodbye.